So, like I said, we're gonna do some thinking about writing, both adolescence writing and your experiences as a writer. So, can we start by you telling us some about your experiences with writing, both from your adolescence and more recently in your educational career?
Okay. Um, Growing up, I was a journaler. I love journaling.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I never finished any of my journals, but I kept purchasing journals, always asking for a new leather bound or new wooden bound journal for Christmas or for my birthday, just to write down my thoughts. And I think because I grew up journaling, because I had those experiences with writing in a diary or things like that, I became more observant. And that helped my writing to become more and more descriptive. I think that laid the foundation for being able to both analyze imagery as well as practice the use and application of very vivid, very great sensorial descriptions. And that helps me out when I'm writing fiction as well as when I'm writing an essay where I analyze a text.
Mm-hmm.
So when I go into college, or when I went into college, I had great professors who helped me focus my ideas.
What did you major in college?
I majored in English with a minor in Spanish and African American Studies. So my favorite teacher, my mentor in college, she taught me both black male writers, which was of course on just the black male writers in America, as well as black women writers. And one of the things that she made me do when it came to writing was focus my ideas and ground myself in the text. Growing up, whether it's in conversation or if it's down on paper, you can expound upon anything. You can talk and talk and talk because you have all these feelings. But the idea behind writing, or at least the idea behind really good writing, is making sure that you focus your ideas, making sure you focus your emotion and your energy. So when I went to college, it was all about making sure I kind of put blinders on when I wrote, making sure that I didn't go off on tangents or that my opinion was not backed by really, really hard evidence from the text or from other texts that we read. So in college, it was really just a honing of those skills. So now as a teacher, or as an aspiring teacher, my initial thought was make sure these kids, make sure these students focus on their writing, focus their work, make sure they focus all their emotions and all their thoughts onto the page. But in many ways, that's jumping the gun, because I don't know a lot of kids who are doing a lot of writing nowadays. Don't get me wrong. I have Twitter, I have Facebook, I'm sure my kids have Twitter, I'm sure my kids have Facebook, and that is a form of writing, that is a form of journaling. But the idea of sustained writing for a good period of time, beyond 140 characters, I don't think a lot of kids are doing that in their free time at the very least. So I've decided to take a step back. Before I have my kids, put a sieve to their writing, I just want them to put everything that they have on the page, and then we can do that kind of selective editing. So my focus is now simply write. So rather than focusing on what to choose, what to filter out, I have my students just simply write. Just simply pour everything that they see, that they know, that they're thinking on the page, because we can do the editing any other time. My focus is just to get them into the habit of writing, get them into the habit of increasing their time writing. So some of the things that I do, some of the activities that I do in my classroom are just journaling. Rather than having warm-ups where we just discuss things, we incorporate a writing element to that. If I have a discussion question that I want the class to mull over, before we start talking, we have to write at least a paragraph. I'm always asking my kids to deliver whatever they say in complete sentences. I tell them that my paragraphs are not 5 sentences long, but 8 to 10 sentences long, just to get in that habit of writing more and more. So the focus is just boosting up that stamina, which they already have. And we already know that we all have opinions and we all have something to say. So now it's just a time to put it on paper or put it on a screen.
You talked about building up stamina. Do you think, it's a two-part question, what do you think in kids' lives today is hindering that, building that stamina? And do you think that 10 or 15 years ago, there were more or less distractions, more or less obstacles to building that stamina?
I think nowadays it's a matter of, it's that darn texting. Sorry to sound so old. the texting, instant messaging, Twitter, that sort of thing. We're focused on that quick write. We're focused on that quick interjection. And there's nothing wrong with that, but what happens is because we're focused on that, we aren't focused on those longer journals. We aren't focused on that longer bit of writing. And I think that limits us. That limits the writers. Now, as far as distractions, you're talking to someone who grew up in the heyday of video games, if this isn't the heyday of video games right now. So there were many a distraction when I was a kid. But I think there was a difference because, I don't know, maybe my teachers asked me to write more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe my teachers did not necessarily rely on the computer, so I had that stamina of physically writing on pen and paper, and I think that helped me, build up that stamina.
Did you get encouraged by your parents to write a lot when you were younger?
Not a direct sense of encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
I was encouraged to read, writing his brother. So I don't think it's one and the same, but a consumption of letters and words
Sure.
is at the heart of it all.
Sure. If you had to describe the kind of student who succeeds at writing, the kind of writing you're doing, what would he or she look like? Look like, act like, dress like, write like?
The successful student, at writing is the one who is not afraid of revision. I think students, and this may not just be indicative of this generation, but of any generation, we hate the do-over. We crave the do-over and we want the do-over, but we hate it when it comes to work. Mm-hmm. So that ideal student, that great student, comes with clearly rough work, but is willing and ready to make revisions, asking for your ideas. Not necessarily, is this good, is this bad? What can I do better? What can I do less of to increase, the quality of my writing? Mm-hmm. And they're not afraid to revise, not once, not twice, but as many times until it becomes perfect, as it were. So that's what that student looks like. That student doesn't groan or moan necessarily when they're asked to write something down, or at the very least, they don't groan or moan for more than 30 seconds. Mm-hmm. So yeah, just someone who's willing to do that writing, willing to say, okay, this is the work that I have to do, so let me put forth the best effort. And it doesn't matter if it takes more than one try.
Right. What about the contrary? What about a student who puts out bad writing on a consistent basis?
That student can come in a couple forms. Either I just don't care, that student who's completely apathetic to this process and doesn't care what they write and could not care less about this class, or you have that student who believes he or she can write already and there is no need or room for improvement. Mm-hmm. So I can simply punch the keys and blurt out excellence. I'll admit, I am the latter, or at least I was the latter growing up. I was that kid who assumed, well, I can write, I can wax poetic for a couple paragraphs, so all I need to do is type something up an hour before bedtime, come to class tomorrow, and I'll have an A. Lo and behold, when I get into my senior year in high school and then all of my years in college, I got papers literally thrown back in my face. I had teachers and professors tell me, if I grade this right now, I will fail you. You need to take your butt to the learning commons, or you need to go back and revise this. So you have those two types of kids, that apathetic or that so confident kid mm-hmm. that they don't want to try.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your participation today, Mr. Sellars. I think you shed some very useful light on the situation.
I try.